Well, it's official. It finally happened. Ben Shapiro has decided to go full hypocrite and fire Candace Owens for quote unquote anti-Semitic comment.
There's no reason to get angry. Do you think
But no, there is reason to
do
get
you think
angry.
it is sad when an innocent Palestinian child dies?
Candace, I cry every day. And it's not just for Israel. And this is one of the things you clearly do not understand. The same way most don't, who are anti-Semites, you don't get it.
Now, if you're not aware, Ben Shapiro is basically an alt-right grifter. He's someone who pretends to be a free thinker, someone who pretends to be someone who promotes free speech. That's the big gimme. And I can't lie and say that I disagree with every point he's made. I love all the different videos he's made where he goes to little like elementary schools and kindergartners. And I think it's funny whenever he goes to college campuses and argues with people who clearly are dumber than him. And he refuses to talk to anyone who has even been near a high school, never mind graduated from there. So I think there are some highlights to him. It's just not really too great as of late. If you're not aware, there's currently a war going on in the Middle East. It's something that happened on October 7th. It started then. There was nothing that happened before then. Don't bother opening up a history book. If you do, you're anti-Semitic. And since then, Ben Shapiro has had one big hypocrite stance change when it comes to American geopolitics, and that being that he believes that the United States should strongly support Israel, not only monetary-wise, but also weapon-wise, as well as through legislation. And I'm sure if push came to shove, he would think that American soldiers themselves should go to the Middle East because it's so important that Israel is a bastion of democracy and that the United States protects it.
They say that I want America to fight wars for Israel. Nope. Nope. First of all, Israel can take care of herself.
If Israel is forced to the wall, the possibility of nuclear exchange is extremely high. That is why it is very important that the United States provide the material aid to Israel.
Now, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that ideology. I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with it, but let's just pretend like it's totally fine and totally okay to literally prop up another government and avoid any type of responsibility of human rights acts. But let's just say that that's the case, that, you know, that ideology is something you can go along with. The only problem is that Ben Shapiro just a few months earlier was going on and on about how Ukraine should not be supported, that the Democrats or the demon rats are complete idiots for ever supporting Ukraine, and that it's not important to do anything in that region because it's just a waste of American taxpayer money. And believe it or not, Ben Shapiro actually said he had the gall to say the difference between Ukraine and Israel is that Israel can support itself. It doesn't need the United States. And that if push comes to shove, at least Israel can support itself. And it's not like Ukraine where you need to hold their hand and give them a bunch of money. Now, it's ironic that Ben Shapiro would say that, considering that the United States from World War II onward has been basically footing the bill for the Israel-Palestine conflict, as well as the Israel and Arab conflict, as well as the Israel, hey, I need $1, can I get some money conflict. The United States has been funding Israel for many years. Every year, there's donations that go there, or, you know, investments, if you want to look at it that way. And if you have that ideology and you believe that's the case, fair enough. But the point I'm trying to make here is that aside from the ideology, Ben Shapiro is a hypocrite because he thinks that Ukraine is a bad investment, but Israel is a good investment. Coincidentally enough, just because he thinks that's the case. He basically is on the side of what he thinks is right because of the fact that he has a personal stake in Israel. He's Jewish, and by the way, this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the Jewish religion, because there's some Jewish people who do not support the state of Israel, or some Jewish people who do not support foreign aid unconditionally, such as Bernie Sanders. But he's someone who is a Zionist. He's someone who believes that Israel is an important satellite state. He believes that Israel is a quote-unquote great democracy in a land of barbarians, and that he, along with other Americans, believe that it should be funded unconditionally, despite them literally masquerading around and destroying families, villages, and other people. It's at the point now where Ben Shapiro believes that it's A-okay and it's what needs to happen. Now, what's very interesting about this is that Ben Shapiro is a hypocrite in the sense that he supports Israel's funding, but not Ukraine. But he's also a hypocrite even further, and I would say even more damaging recently when it comes to his whole authenticity act of saying that he believes in free speech. For years, he would go on and on about talking about how you should be able to question the woke propaganda. You should be able to speak up and say what's on your mind, and you shouldn't be afraid of losing your job or being basically being condemned for saying certain things. But when it came to one of his own employees, Candace Owens, who for I don't know how many years, but for a number of time has been on the Daily Wire, a company that Ben Shapiro owns, she recently decided to start having interviews and starting having discussions, specifically most recently with a rabbi who said that she was anti-Semitic. Now, in all reality, Candace Owens is a lot of things. She has said extremely disrespectful and racist things. She's one of the few people to, within a day, go out and disrespect the memory of George Floyd. Now, he's not a saint. I'm not saying George Floyd was necessarily a previous president, but literally the day after his demise, she came out with a 20-minute video on Facebook talking about how he's a terrible person, that no one should even care that he had passed on, which is nuts in my opinion. But I say all this to say that even though Candace Owens has some questionable ideology supports, she also has some ideologies that I plain disagree with. She's consistent. When she was talking about funding of foreign countries such as Ukraine and saying she was against it, she flat out said that I don't support it. I think that it's something that is unnecessary, and much like most Republican talking points, say that it's a waste of money and a waste of time. Now, when it comes to Israel, she echoed the same sentiment, saying that it's not necessary and it's something that is a waste of money and is a waste of time. Now, as a result of this, because she questioned this, she was labeled an anti-Semite by multiple people, as well as recently was basically attacked on her own show by a rabbi saying that he purports that she is an anti-Semite and that he is basically trying to stop her from sharing this dangerous ideology. Fast forward a couple of days, what ends up happening is that due to Candace Owens' quote-unquote dangerous anti-Semitic speech, she's been fired and let go from the Daily Wire, the quote-unquote free speech network. Now, here's the thing. The term anti-Semitic has been thrown around the past 90 days, 100 days, ever since that fateful day, almost as a meme at this point, because it's becoming a literal laughingstock to the point that multiple Zionists as well as multiple representatives of the Zionist Brigade have, done things that were very eye-catching, such as the Israeli PMs going to the UN wearing a yellow star of Jude in order to say that they are currently being subjugated as if it is the Holocaust. Now, again, here's the thing that people don't understand. I brought up that Candace Owens was getting interviewed and criticized by a rabbi on her show, but that does not necessarily mean that he is someone who is of the faith, and that Candace Owens is going against Jewish people in general. And I think it's very, very difficult because, when it comes to certain political talking pieces in this country, the story is as simple or as complex as they want it to be. And when it comes to something as simple as or as complex as Jewish identity, Zionism and Judaism is not the same thing. So when Candace Owens says that she doesn't support just mindlessly giving billions of dollars to Israel in order to essentially carry out atrocities against civilians, that does not necessarily bode anything against the Jewish community, and no, it is not anti-Semitic. So with, Ben Shapiro organization as well as other organizations saying that Candace Owens is anti-Semitic and that's why she got fired, no, that's not the case. Candace Owens was basically silenced for saying an opinion that Ben Shapiro and other Zionist individuals do not support, they don't agree with. And because they do not agree with it, not because it's dangerous, not because she's creating the next Fourth Reich as the black Austrian painter, she basically shared an opinion that he does not agree with. It's an opinion that he is staunchly against, mostly because he's biased and mostly because he has that viewpoint in the world. And she is not anti-Semitic, although she is a very complex individual and she said some crazy things. She's not in the wrong with this one. I have not heard anything anti-Semitic. It's been mostly talking points. Replace the words that most Republicans say about Ukraine and Russia, and put the words Israel and Palestine, and you'll end up having a similar narrative with similar points and similar information. So when it comes to this debacle of Ben Shapiro basically taking his mask off and saying that he's not a free thinker, he's not for free speech, he's basically for pushing agendas that he supports and pushing things that make him happy, and what's good for him is good for him, and what's bad for others he could care less about. Ben Shapiro is a hypocrite. He is basically someone who has masqueraded around as an intellectual, when in reality he's just a small-minded, myopic individual who pushes an agenda just for his own personal gain.
At the end of every single video, make sure you ask people to rate and subscribe to your content. It makes them feel like they're involved even though they're really not. And most importantly, make sure they comment on every single video. If you have to, disguise it. You know, call it something like the question of the day. And really make them think you're gonna really read it when you really don't have to. Ha ha ha!